So the move to create a new income tax in the state cleared another hurdle, but first legislators changed part of the bill. The House Finance Committee added diapers to the list of sales tax exempted items under what is being called the Millionaire's tax. Governor Bob Ferguson made that suggestion earlier this month. He says the proposed income tax did not come with enough tax breaks for low-income residents. The Senate originally rejected that proposal, but this morning the House added it.
We need to look at reducing financial burdens for individuals and families on these essential needs like baby diapers and adult diapers, and just make it easier for everyday people to be able to pay for food.
So now the tax proposal heads to the House Appropriations Committee for debate. The legislative session scheduled to end March 12th. So the Millionaire's tax is one step closer to becoming a reality. Joining us is former State Senator Reuven Carlyle to talk about that and other legislative issues that we are tracking. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
So as you know, first the governor wants a lot of this revenue used for tax relief. Do you think this latest version is going to satisfy him?
It's hard to know, but it's certainly getting in that direction. I mean, there's clearly lots of internal negotiations going on between the House, the Senate, and the governor. And obviously having enough of the revenue for tax relief for small businesses and individuals, because we're a sales tax driven state, is a really important criteria of the governor. So I think we're probably getting much closer.
It sounds like we're getting very, very close. Lawmakers are counting on this revenue in the budget. So what happens if the courts strike it down or if voters reject it?
That's absolutely a real issue. I mean, they are booking $2.1 to $2.3 billion in revenue starting in 28-29. And all of a sudden, you have to ask yourself, what happens if that money doesn't materialize, both because of the courts or even a voter repeal? So all of a sudden, you are setting in motion automatically an expectation of a very big deficit because they're spending the money as if they have it. And it's got a long way to go before the money starts coming in.
Yeah, it's not there yet. So what's next for this tax bill then, do you think?
Well, it goes to committee.
Right.
It's moving through the process. The negotiations on the inside are happening all the time, and they're going to get to a place where they come out with an agreement. I think the votes seem to be there, but it's still a lot of tension. Once it gets to the House floor, you know, that can get really tense, and you'll see lots of attempts at additional amendments to try to increase the amount of money that goes to tax relief, but also, you know, build in some protection so it doesn't go lower than a millionaire. But that's of course hard to do without it being in the Constitution.
And TikTok March 12th is the end
right.
of the
It's
session,
coming.
right? Let's turn to another headline. We reported this yesterday about Representative Joe Fitzgibbon admitting to drinking, then apologizing. Were you surprised when you heard about this?
Absolutely. I've known Representative Fitzgibbon for many, many years. He is so widely regarded. He's an incredible policy leader. He's personally respected. If you talk to Democrats and Republicans, this is very out of the usual for him. And I would say that in a time where public accountability and personal responsibility in government and politics has evaporated, for him to own it and to apologize with such grace and such intentionality, I think shows his personal character and his real acknowledgement of the big mistake that he made.
And I want to clarify, I said he admitted to drinking on the job was the
That's
part
right.
that I left out. So
That's
he
right.
didn't get that part of the story yesterday. So
Yeah.
that's what he was apologizing for, because it was work related. And how do you think all of this might impact his job and even what happens in the legislature?
Yeah, he's very well thought of personally and professionally. I think it's going to, you know, it's going to unfold in a normal way. I don't anticipate long-term repercussions. And of course, he faces the voters in November as well.
And they ultimately will
ultimately
decide.
they decide.
Okay, another topic. The state spends about $500 million a year on lawsuit payouts.
Yeah.
Where is that liability coming from?
That's a big question.
Lot of money.
This seems like sort of a inside Olympia government policy question, but this is a big issue. The state of Washington now has an explosion of liability, of costs that come from these lawsuits, whether it's the foster care system or the transportation system, whatever it might be. It's all combined to reach about $500 million a year. 10 years ago, it was 15, 20, 30 million. So it's just huge explosion.
$500 million?
We're now spending as taxpayers the same amount of money on lawsuits and liability as we are at the University of Washington in a given year. So it's completely out of control. There's very little effort to try to seriously rein those goes in. So it's a big problem politically, but it's also a financial issue for the taxpayer.
And then are those costs expected to go up? And even if they don't go up and they stay where they are, which is super high, what are the fixes for that?
Projections for the next couple of years are $1.3 billion. So this has just exploded, and there's been an expansion of the state's liability going back to the foster kids and others who might have been abused. So you want accountability for the public. You want government to be held responsible. But the level, we're probably the worst state in the nation in payouts. Some would say we're a state where there's the greatest level of accountability, but it's simply unsustainable financially. So this is an issue that the legislature did not successfully get to this year. They're going to have to dive into it next year. We simply don't have a choice.
Reuven Carlyle, we're going to end it there. Thank you so much. We'll see you again next week.
Of course.
As we wind down this legislative session. Thank you.
That's right.